Hello everyone! I'm Angela with Happy Little Stitch Shop, and I am here with you today to kick off our Let's Make a Dresden Quilt Along. We had been asked to provide a Dresden quilt kit and host a quilt along, and our kits went out a little bit ago, and we're here now to kick off our quilt along. So I made this Dresden quilt a few years ago using a different fabric collection. So our quilt is going to be a little bit different than this one because this fabric collection is no longer available. This fabric that I used for this quilt was also by Tasha Noel, and it was from her Simple Goodness fabric collection, which, as I said, is no longer available. But Tasha just released her newest fabric collection called Quilt Fair. Let me show you. And this is just as adorable as this collection and perfect for fussy cutting some fun centers out and making a Dresden quilt. So Happy Little Stitch Shop has put together a Dresden quilt kit. I didn't have a pattern when I made this kit. I just found a quilt layout that I liked and wanted to make a Dresden quilt. And so I just started making some Dresden and put it into a quilt layout. So I will go through all of that as we go through our Dresden quilt along. I'll show you how to do everything along the way. So the first thing that we're going to tackle in today's video is we are going to talk about supplies that are needed for the quilt along, and also we're going to get started cutting our Dresden blades. Then that will keep you busy for a little while because there are a lot of blades to cut and sew. And then we'll get back together and we'll progress through the rest of the quilt along until we are finished and have our Dresden quilt at the end. It won't take long. Once you get going, it's pretty easy. So first thing you need is your Dresden quilt kit from Happy Little Stitch Shop. In this kit, you will find 3 charm packs from the Quilt Fair fabric collection by Tasha Noel. You will also find a stack of fabric for the rest of your quilt. Your red gingham is going to be used for your binding. This white main pattern with all of those fun pictures is going to be used for the fussy cutting for the centers of your Dresdens. This aqua colored fabric with the strawberries is going to be used for the sashing. This white with the little aqua sewing machines, so cute. This one is going to be used for your background and this first border around the outside. And then the navy flowers are going to be used for the second border and also for your cornerstones. So that's what you will have in your kit. Then I'm going to put this stuff away and I'm going to come right back and I'm going to show you what supplies you need for this quilt along. So hold on tight, I'll be right back. Okay, let's talk supplies for our Dresden quilt along. Let's take a peek. Of course, you're going to need your basic quilting supplies like a cutting mat, a sewing machine, thread, a rotary cutter, your basic quilting ruler. And then outside of that, this is a handy ruler to have. I use these two a lot when I'm doing quilting. But then outside of that, you will need a Dresden ruler, which there are a couple options at happylittlestitchshop.com for you. This one that I have here is a Creative Grids Dresden ruler. This is the one that I used when I made the other Dresden quilt. It comes with this pie-shaped ruler and it also comes with the circle ruler. There's also in the shop the Lori Holt pie ruler, which includes this pie-shaped ruler, and that will work just fine too. So either of those are excellent options for your Dresden ruler. This is called a Prairie Pointer. And I used this during my turning of my Dresden blades and my ironing of my Dresden blades to get those nice sharp points. I could not find this to be able to carry it in the shop for you guys. I looked and looked and looked. I cannot find it available anymore. So your best bet is to probably search Amazon or do a Google search and see if you can find this if you want it. This is optional. It's not necessary. I did find that I enjoyed it when making my previous Dresden quilt to really help get those nice points at the end of your blades. But it's completely up to you. This is optional, not necessary if you don't want it. And then each of the Dresden blocks that we're going to make are going to be 12.5 inch blocks unfinished. Once it's finished, it'll be a 12-inch block in the quilt. So a 12.5-inch square ruler will be handy to trim up those blocks before we put it into the quilt. This is the Cute Cuts Trim It Ruler by Lori Holt. It's a 12.5-inch square ruler. It's wonderful. It gives you a clear window of what your block is going to look like without the 1/4-inch seam allowance. That's what this shaded part is around the outside. So outside of that, you will also need the Vintage Christmas book by Lori Holt. This is the book that I found the quilt layout that I used for the quilt. So this will give you information that I won't be able to share in the quilt along, such as how many strips you need for your borders, what inches to cut your strips, and all of that kind of stuff for your sashing and for your borders and for your cornerstones. So all of that type of information will be in here. And this is available in the shop too. And when we get to that point, the quilt layout that I used is on page 182. It's called Deck the Halls Quilt. So when we get to the point of putting our quilt together and finishing it, we'll be referring to that book for the layout instructions. So that's pretty much all you need for supplies. Now I'm going to clear this stuff out and I'm going to pull out my 3 charm packs, and I'm going to show you how we start cutting our Dresden blades. Okay, are you guys ready to jump in and start doing some cutting for your Dresden blades? Now, when I talk about a Dresden blade, that's what all of these little fan blades are. So we're going to take our charm packs. Our charm packs are going to be what makes up all of the Dresden blades that are going to be in your kit, in your quilt. So let's take a peek. I have a charm pack open here, and I'm ready to start cutting some blades. So when I cut my Dresden blades, I take about 4 charms. Make sure that they're lined up, pretty good, so that you're cutting nice Dresden blades. And then you're going to take your Dresden pie ruler and you're going to line up the bottom like this, and the top should be at about the 5-inch mark on your Dresden ruler. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that it's straight on the top and bottom, and make sure that the corner, like I'm not all the way over here, because then I'm not going to have a full Dresden blade. So you want to make sure that your corner is lined up here. And you don't have to hug it really closely. You can move over a little bit because you're going to have excess left at the end. So make sure that it's lined up. Take your rotary cutter, cut along there. Then I'm going to leave this for now, and I'm going to move right over here, and I'm going to flip my Dresden ruler upside down. And I'm going to line it up again. I'm going to cut there. This is excess. This I'm going to put into my Dresden blade pile. Now this one, I'm going to flip around, and I'm going to line it up this way to cut off that other side. This is scrap as well. Let me do a few more here so that you guys can get the hang of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now when you're picking out your charm squares, your 5-inch squares for your Dresden blades, keep in mind that the background is white. And so if you want to take a peek here, you can see that some of my Dresden blades are white and they kind of blend into the background, unless it's got like a larger floral print. But this one you can barely see because it's the exact same fabric as my background fabric. So you want to try to pick some colors that are going to contrast a little bit with the background so that your whole Dresden stands out. Flip it. Remember, it's a 5-inch square, so we're measuring at the 5-inch mark. Add that to my pile. I'm going to turn this around. Line that up. Let's do one more just for fun. Look at these beautiful prints. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to put this Dresden quilt together. It's going to be so, so pretty. I'm going to flip my ruler. Line that up. Add that to my pile. Then I'm going to flip this around. Add that to my pile. So let's do a little bit of math so we know how many Dresden blades we need to cut. So that's how the cutting is going to go. You're going to get 2 blades per 5-inch square. Now on each of these Dresdens, there are 20 Dresden blades. We have 12 total blocks with 20 Dresden blades. So that means you need 240 Dresden blades in order to make this quilt. Now you have 3 5-inch stackers. In each 5-inch stacker, there are 42 prints. If you get 2 cuts out of each of those 42 prints times 3, you're going to have 252 blade options. You only need 240, so you'll have a little bit extra. So the 3 stackers should be plenty to get you 240 blades. So that's going to be what the goal is until our next video, is to cut up your Dresden blades. Now, after you cut up your Dresden blades, you are going to take a Dresden blade to your sewing machine. You're going to take all of them, actually. You're going to fold it in half, right sides together, okay? And you're going to do a 1/4-inch seam right along the top here. Now what you'll do is you'll take a whole stack of blades and you're just going to chain piece. So you're going to put this one through, grab another one, put that one through, grab another one. We're going to take a little break. I'm going to head over to my sewing machine and I'll show you really quick how to sew all of these Dresden blades together, chain piecing, and then I'll show you how we're going to turn them right side out. I'll meet you at my sewing machine. Okay guys, so I'm at the sewing machine. I have my stack of Dresden blades here that we've cut. So you're going to take a Dresden blade and you're going to fold it together like this, right sides together. And you're going to put it in here and you're going to sew a 1/4-inch seam right along that top. And as you can see, I've already done a few, and so I'm just going to keep chain piecing these together. I'm going to pick another one. I'm going to fold it. Put it under there. So this can go, pretty fast once you get into a good groove and a good rhythm. Put it under there and just sew right along there. So you're going to keep doing this with all of your 240 Dresdens. Okay, then once you have it like this is what it's going to look like when you've got them all chain pieced together. This is a handy little tool called a blade saver. You take your old rotary blades that are maybe not sharp enough to cut through the fabric anymore, but they're certainly sharp enough to cut through these little threads. So you put it inside this little snowflake looking thing, and then you can just cut all of these apart. Okay, then the next part is to iron these. So you're going to turn them right side out like this. So it looks like a little Dresden. Look at that. And we're going to go, I'll meet you at the ironing space, and I'm going to show you what that metal prairie pointer, how to use that if you're lucky enough to find one, and how it helps you really make these points nice and crisp. So I'll meet you at the ironing station in just a second. Okay guys, so here is a Dresden blade that I've just turned so that it's right side out. Here is the prairie pointer. So I'm going to put this in to the Dresden blade and kind of gently push so that point becomes nice and pointy. And as you can see, my center seam is lined up with the center line here. So it helps me to make sure, that my Dresden isn't like that. It's not like that. If I have it lined up fairly in the middle, then it should make my Dresden pretty okay. So then you take your iron and just kind of press that top part. Don't hold it on the metal because the metal will get hot. So please do be careful about that. And then when you take it out, your Dresden is nice and pointy. And then I'm going to go ahead and press from the top. Okay. And it makes your Dresden nice and flat, nice and pointy. And as you can see, look, isn't that cute? We'll talk about this later, but the most important part is you want this part to line up. If this part down here is off, your circle's going to cover that, so don't worry too much about this. But you do want these points up here to match when we get to the part of sewing them together. But that is how you will iron your Dresdens. So I'll meet you back at the cutting space and we'll finish up this first part. Okay, everyone, so now we've gone through supplies needed for our Dresden quilt along. We have gone through how to cut your Dresden blades using your Dresden your Dresden ruler or your pie ruler, can be called one of two things. And I've shown you how to sew your Dresden blades together, turn them, and iron them. So right now you have 240 Dresden blades to make in order to have enough for our quilt. And next time when we get together, we will talk about sewing the Dresdens together and then work through the next steps of the quilt after that. So this should be enough to keep you busy for a little bit in making all of your Dresden blades and getting them all ironed and ready to go. So I hope you had fun for our first Dresden Quilt Along episode. Please join us next time for episode 2 as we continue through the process of making our Dresden quilt. It's going to be gorgeous and beautiful and so colorful and happy. I can't wait to get it all done and to sew this quilt with you guys. So please remember to give Happy Little Stitch Shop YouTube channel a thumbs up and please subscribe to our channel. Please follow Happy Little Stitch Shop on Instagram and Facebook. And please go to happylittlestitchshop.com and check out all of our quilting and cross-stitching goodies there. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 1 of Let's Make a Dresden Quilt. I hope you will come back next time and join us for episode 2. Thank you so much, everybody. Happy stitching. Take care.